that funny.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Chris at the Morning Mayhem. Welcome back. If you are tuning in again and you're liking what you see, make sure you subscribe so you can see all the updates, any new videos we put out there on a regular basis. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. And if it's your first time tuning in, I hope you enjoy it. We're going to talk about some of the things that happened this week. Pretty eventful week this week, I'd say. Just the other day, it was Valentine's Day. And, you know, the saying is, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. So all you lovebirds out there, I hope you had a great time. And if you're single, I hope you had an even more fun time. Anyways, the Super Bowl was also this past Sunday. And if you watched that, you weren't alone. It was one of the highest viewed Super Bowls in a long time. I know Taylor Swift's Boyfriend's team won. That's about it. Other than that, I know the halftime show was awesome because it was Atlanta representing Georgia. That's what we do. So I heard that was great. I heard that was awesome. But let's talk about what we're getting into today. So a couple of things. Joe Biden's mental and physical health declines. Nikki Haley thinking she's got a shot against Trump in the next primary and even in a debate. The cancel mob is going after a black comedian for a George Floyd reference. Good old St. George. Hollywood films being over-bloated with their budget and aren't profitable, while foreign films have figured it out. But first, all right, so the Hollywood Reporter says, Jon Stewart says Daily Show return was prompted by wanting to have a place to unload thoughts ahead of the 2024 election. Stewart also weighed in on the changing media landscape and his Apple TV exit before returning to host on Monday nights, the Comedy Central late night show. Good old Jon. Jon Stewart is opening up about his highly anticipated return as host of Comedy Central's The Daily Show nearly 9 years after leaving the nightly gig. Appearing on Monday's CBS mornings before returning as Daily Show host on Mondays through 2024 election, Stewart said it was indeed the political environment that brought him back, while also sharing that the move was influenced by his departure from Apple TV Plus over creative differences. I very much wanted to have some place to unload thoughts as we get into this election season, Stewart said. Then, referring to the problem with Jon Stewart not moving forward with a third season on the streamer, I thought I was going to do it over at, they call it Apple TV Plus. It's a television enclave, very small. It's like living in Malibu. They felt that they didn't want me to say things that might get me in trouble. So, again, I think two of the things that I understand that were spoken about were China and AI. And I think those two were big things because it's Apple TV that he was on. And of course, Apple is largely made and manufactured and has dealings with China in so many different ways, right? And AI is probably something that they're highly invested in or whatnot. We'll look at another article here real quick, and then we'll get to a little brief video where Jon pretty much opened the show, tearing up a little bit of both sides. Over at Fox News, Keith Olbermann, who, if you don't know who that is, be grateful. Keith Olbermann, liberal commentators fume over Jon Stewart's mockery of Biden and Daily Show return. It's the first time in a while a liberal outlet, because you got to think, all the nighttime shows, right? The late night this and the too late that and whatever, all the late night shows, all the news media for the most part, and even the Daily Show, I guess you can consider it an evening show, a late show, a night show. All of them just hold the, sack, so to speak, for Joe Biden, and no one ever tears into him or the left in general. It's always going after the right or Trump specifically. And for the first time in a long time, they're hearing it come out of one of their own's mouth. So they didn't like that too much. Stewart, who roasted Trump's myriad legal issues as well, returned to show as host for first time since 2015. We'll just skip on down here. So here's Keith Olbermann's tweet. Well, after 9 years away, there's nothing else to say to the both-sidedest fraud Jon Stewart bashing Biden except please make it another 9 years. Aaron Rupert says Jon Stewart still has it in terms of being funny. I agree. And entertaining. I agree. But the political content of his monologue is basically the New York Times op-ed page in TV form. both sides are not, in fact, equally bad. Again, it's one of the first times in a long time that they have seen that both sides are bad and both sides have their issues, and that the right isn't the worst thing in the world, and then maybe the guy running on the left has some issues. We're going to see that in just a second, but it's the first time they've been challenged in a while. And again, because it's coming from Jon Stewart, someone who has followed them over to the dark side, to the left, they were not expecting it. It threw them off, and they can't take the slightest bit of criticism because they haven't had to deal with it for so long. So check out this video. This is him opening up the show and maybe a little bit of what they're so mad about.
And the hits kept coming.
Initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in.
Now, geography buffs might have noticed Gaza and Mexico do not share a border. Biden was referring to Sisi, the president of Egypt, not Mexico. Unless it was even worse than that, and he thinks the president of Mexico is named Si.
Okay, so fair criticism, I think. You know, Trump makes some blunders. I don't have a problem pointing that out. I don't know why it is that people on the left have an issue when you point out problems that Biden has. They're so blind, and we said this, I don't want to say just last week, probably last week and the week before, that they will go after Trump for making one or two blunders and run on the 24-hour news cycle nonstop, but they will completely ignore the myriad of issues that Biden is having. In fact, we'll get into Bill Maher a little bit later on. We're going to talk about how he's just can't see it. Doesn't think there's anything wrong, but we'll get to that in a minute. So Jon Stewart's back. I'm excited because I think there's hope. Right? But what of the last host, the last official, legit host of The Daily Show, Trevor Noah? What's going on with him? Well, according to Radar Online, they're already having podcast problems. Trevor Noah clashing with Spotify about direction of show 3 months after launch. Says Trevor Noah has allegedly grown frustrated with Spotify, with the former late night talk show host and the company's executives clashing about the direction of his new podcast. RadarOnline.com has learned Noah 39 only inked his deal with the company last year. First episode of What Now with Trevor Noah launched on November 9th. Fast forward to 3 months later, and the relationship is already soured. Word on the street is Noah's team has been trying to renegotiate or change his Spotify contract, which sources said worries the streaming giant that he might try to opt out of his minimum guarantee, aka the amount he's paid to deliver an agreed upon number of podcasts. The clash is reportedly over podcast guests. Noah hopes to bring on newsy figures, but Spotify executives want him to stick in his lane and focus on celebrity interviews, according to Semaphore. The ex-Daily Show host spoke about his dream guest, revealing he'd like to bring in an array of talent, not just A-list pals. Look, I'll be real with you. I think it would be exciting to see him, interview some other people. And I say that from a standpoint of I don't think he should, but I think it would be exciting for me because I don't find him funny. And I don't find him politically in tune. So I don't know who he's going to bring on. But if he's not bringing on celebrities who, can act like they're interesting and act like they have something to talk about, I don't know what he's going to do. He's going to pretend with politicians or more newsy people, as he says. I don't even know what that means. But the whole stay in your lane or stick in your lane comment, thought that was pretty good. So let's move on. Our next topic now, we've got Nikki Haley just being delusional, right? See if I can get this switch over. Switch. There we go. Over here at the Hill, Haley resurfaces Trump remarks mocking veterans in new ad. It goes on to talk about how she wants to challenge him in this and that. GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley's latest ad showcases former Trump's past remarks mocking veterans as she attempts to ramp up her campaign ahead of the South Carolina primary later this month. Haley's campaign released the roughly 90-second ad Monday after Trump took aim at Haley's husband for being absent. He is serving in the military overseas. The ad includes snippets of news reports discussing past remarks from Trump, including him reportedly calling soldiers who died overseas losers and suckers. Now, I will say this. I'll point out a few things. The losers and suckers comment has been debunked. Okay? In fact, you can check out, get the right one here. Yeah. You can check out this video up here, right? I'll leave a link in the description below to Don't Walk Run Productions. They literally made a video about this like 8 or 9 days ago, something like that, talking about this claim of losers and suckers and it being debunked. A couple of points to make out of that, right? Actually, you know what? Let's watch the ad so you can hear it out of the horse's mouth herself. No pun intended there, no. But just listen to what she has to say, and we'll debunk a couple other things or kind of push back on some of the other claims. Look, they're political opponents. They're going to go after each other, right? I get that. But let's listen to what's being thrown at Trump so we know what's coming.
President Trump says no other president is more with the military than he is, but he's made it an unusual habit for a commander-in-chief of picking fights with and being insensitive to members of the military and their families.
The article said Trump called those who died suckers and losers.
The stunning detail that Trump turned to Kelly on Memorial Day at Arlington National Cemetery in 2017 and asked, "I don't get it. What was in it for them?"
He attacked John McCain, a POW who spent more than 5 years in captivity during the Vietnam War.
I like people that weren't captured, okay?
And now he's attacking retired Admiral Bill McRaven, a former Navy SEAL who oversaw the mission that took out Osama bin Laden.
Donald Trump had a rally today, and in that rally, he mocked my husband's military service. And I'll say this, Donald, if you have something to say, don't say it behind my back. Get on a debate stage and say it to my face. I am proud of Michael's service. Every military spouse knows it's a family sacrifice. I have long talked about the fact that we need to have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75. Donald Trump claims that he would pass that. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. But if you mock the service of a combat veteran, you don't deserve a driver's license, let alone being president of the United States.
And that's coming from a woman that loves the military industrial complex so much. She married someone in the military. Just think about that. Look, we're going to debunk a couple of things or just point a couple of things out to push back against that video. Made a little list and I'm going to run through it. So if I'm not right here with you and I'm over here, I'm reading. All right. So, first go check out that video. I'll throw it up there again. Bing. Check out that video by Andrew over at Don't Walk Run. Again, link will be in the description because he will go into a much, much deeper dive than I will. I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. But the Atlantic wrote about it, saying that there were 4 people with firsthand knowledge that he canceled a visit to the Unported American Cemetery near Paris in 2018. All 4 of those people with firsthand knowledge were anonymous, as they tend to always be. Official White House documentation proves that the decision to not land the helicopter due to weather was made between the Marine Corps, the White House, military office, in collaboration with the Secret Service. So it wasn't Trump saying he didn't want to land, he didn't want to go to it, none of that stuff. In rebuttal, Trump has had 25 people on record debunking all of this. But did that make it into the article or any other articles for that matter? No, not really. Okay, unless you do a deep dive, you probably won't find that. Trump did attack McCain, no doubt about it, right? But McCain was a garbage war hawk politician that had attacked Trump. If you go after him, he will go after you. That's all there is to it. And when he does, there's nothing off limits. When it comes to Trump, there's nothing off limits. Furthermore, Nikki Haley's husband isn't off limits either, right? Anything to shake her up, and that's what it did. They're in a political race right now in the primaries. Don't know why she's still there, but she is. So he's playing the game. And just because someone has served in the military doesn't mean they are void of being criticized. I appreciate the military. I respect the military. I have military in my family. My grandfather was in the military. Our pastor was in the military. Plenty of military people. Love them all. They're great. But just because you worn the uniform doesn't make you void of any criticism that you may have against them. Because here's the thing. I'm going to say this, censor, church people if you don't want to hear the language here, but thank you for your service. But if you're a dick with the uniform, you're still a dick. The uniform doesn't change that. Maybe I'll respect you more, but if you're a dick in the uniform, you're still a dick. Okay? So that doesn't void you of any criticisms at all. Thanks for your service, but don't be a garbage person. And most of the military folks aren't, but there are some that absolutely are. And you are open to criticism. And I think they know it. It's the people that want to stand up and shout, "You can't criticize my husband," or whatever. It's those people that probably just need to sit this one out. All right, let's take a look at this other article. Again, this is about good old Haley. Haley challenges Trump on her home turf in South Carolina as a Republican primary looms. He doesn't need to, though. He doesn't need to debate you. He is well ahead in the polls. Check this out. So as it stands right now, the 2024 GOP nomination, who would you vote for today? This is a CBS News poll from YouGov back in February 5th through 10th, it looks like. So just a couple of weeks old. 65% of the people that took the poll, 65% said Trump, 30% said Haley. Haley has not done anything these primaries against Trump. Trump is blowing her out of the water. Now, there is still hope for Haley yet, just like in any of the other primaries that we've had in any of the other states. If the Democrats can vote in the Republican primary or claim to be undeclared, Haley might have a shot of putting up some numbers. But if you'll go back and watch our show last week and look at some of these other shows, not just ours, okay, not just Morning Mayhem, but there's plenty other out there, all right, that explored all the Democrats who said they were undeclared, vote in the Republican primaries for Haley, but then said they would vote for Biden if it was between Haley and Biden. So they're not undeclared. They're not conservatives. They're Democrats, and they're saying they're undeclared so they can participate in the Republican primaries. And I don't want to use the word cheat, but they want to take advantage of the system so they can vote against Trump and get Haley in there to go against Biden. Friends, while I got you, I want to talk to you real quick about a company that I've mentioned several times. I'm a big fan of, Coffee Brand Coffee. Coffee Brand Coffee serves people who are sick of the gimmicky companies who offer marketing in place of truly great fresh roasted coffee. The fulfillment and roasting facilities are located right here in the United States. Each purchase is hand roasted to order. That means they wait until they receive your order before they fire up the roaster. Lastly, it's just delicious coffee. It's absolutely wonderful. For the best coffee, tea, or cocoa, visit coffeebrandcoffee.com. Use promo code MAYHEM, right, y'all, and save yourself 10% off your next purchase. Direct link will be in the description below. All right. Moving on. So I wasn't gonna talk about this one, to be completely honest, but it started kind of getting the rounds through some other YouTubers, some other media outlets, and I wanted to kind of come out here and just lay my opinion out there. All right. So we can see here in the post-millennial must watch, comedian cracks epic George Floyd joke, triggered audience members leave. I like Kyle Rittenhouse too. And it says in quotes, "I wouldn't have kneeled on George Floyd's neck. I would have shot that." And I'm not allowed to say that word. Shocker. So here's the thing. All right. So the comedian that said it was David Lucas. Okay. David is from my hometown. I don't know him directly. We are at best distant acquaintances. We're friends on Facebook. We've had a few back and forths. I've done some film work with a cousin of his in Middle Georgia, but we really don't know each other. To be fair, let me just throw that out there. If we passed each other in the street, obviously I would recognize him. He's a very, very successful, very well known and respected comedian. And I'm a nobody. So, there wouldn't really be anything there. But I say all that to say this. I'm going to give my opinion on it, not as somebody who's close to him, because I'm not, but as an objective observer, but also as a fan, because I actually started following his YouTube channel and following him before I knew that the guy that was standing next to me filming some of the short films that we've been working on was his cousin. Had no idea. Didn't even know he was from Macon, Georgia. By the way, Macon, Georgia, home of the Allman Brothers, Otis Redding, Little Richard, Jason Aldean, and of course Dave Lucas, and myself. Just putting that out there. But anyways, I saw the video in question, which he posted to his YouTube channel. He posted it, so he clearly didn't think it was a huge deal. And to know David is to love David as a comedian. He goes after those hecklers. He can roast with the best of them. He goes on that Kill Tony show. He was just recently, I almost said abducted. He was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame for the Kill Tony stuff. And if you haven't seen any of those are great. Joe Rogan's there. Shane Gillis is there. So many other, respected and well-known comedians are there. And David is a regular, and David's just fantastic, but he roasts with the best of them. So that's one of the things comedians are really, really good at usually, is roasting, specifically hecklers, right? So I want to go see one of his shows, but I'm afraid I'll lean and make a noise or burp or fart or yawn or something, and he'll find me in the audience and, roast me. And there's plenty to work with. There's plenty to work with. I will be crawling out in tears if I get roasted by somebody. I just can't handle it. But I did see the video and I thought it was funny. I didn't think there was anything super edgy about it. In fact, I don't want to play it for two reasons. One, a lot of cussing in it, and I don't personally have a problem watching stuff that has a lot of cussing in it, but I try not to put that kind of stuff on my channel. If you want to see it, the direct link will be in the description below. You can go check it out. And if you're not easily offended, I do suggest going and checking it out and seeing what the big deal is. Because again, I didn't find it that offensive or that bad at all. But go check it out there. Plus, that gives him another view. And I mean, he's awesome. Right now, he can use all the support because they are coming after him. They are trying to cancel him. And, the cancel mob is always hard at work trying to go after somebody. So here's a black comedian making fun or using a George Floyd reference when he's roasting a heckler. Let's see. So yeah, direct link down there. All right, at the end of the day, it's just a joke, right? He was going after another black guy who was in the audience that was heckling him. So he was causing a disturbance and interruption, and they had a little bit of a back and forth in the video. You can hear one cracking jokes at the other and the other one going back, and they did that for a little bit. And then David Lucas, being the big time roaster that he is, he said, these folks being disrespectful, making the white folks understand more why George Floyd got his neck kneeled on. So he used that as a reference, saying that these black folks were getting out of line, and now these white folks understand even more now. Hey, if they're like this, I understand why he got his neck kneeled on. And it was a joke. It was a reference. And I know you can't joke about the holy one, George Floyd, despite all the negative that you have for George Floyd, because it was one thing that you can point to. It absolves him of everything. Kind of like the wearing a uniform, being a military guy absolves you of any criticisms or anything like that. So that's just how it is. But that joke, that reference opened the floodgates, right? Then he mentioned, just to kind of top it off a little bit, he mentioned liking Kyle Rittenhouse too, which only pisses people off that are ignorant to who Kyle is and what he did. I covered this just recently. If you don't remember, here's a clip of what the truth was about Kyle Rittenhouse and his involvement in anything. Some people believe that Kyle Rittenhouse crossed state lines with an illegal firearm and shot and or killed black people during the riot in Kenosha, Wisconsin over Jacob Blake shootings. This is false. Okay. The firearm was legal. It's not illegal to transport a firearm across the state line. Didn't happen anyway, but right. He shot and killed a recently released pedophile that was chasing him, threatening him, and he thought he was in danger for his life. This guy went and tried to attack Kyle, calling him the N-word and everything, which is weird. Two white guys, one was calling the other one the N-word, but you know, whatever. But going after Kyle repeatedly, and Kyle reached on up and handled business. It was self-defense, and he shot and killed him in self-defense. So he goes to go get the cops, right? And then the next thing that happens, some stupid skateboarder dude thought he was going to be a hero, came up and tried to stop him, and he got a chunk of his arm blown off for doing something he shouldn't have done. Trying to whack Kyle in the head with the skateboard, which could have, you know, rendered him unconscious, and they could have taken the gun from him. They could have killed him or something. So again, it's another act of self-defense, but you don't hear that. And both of them were white. He didn't shoot anybody that was black. He didn't go there to kill anybody. But that's the way it's presented a lot of times, right? You know, you may not agree with his way of handling things, but the facts are the facts. And they are constantly being misrepresented or straight up lied about. Well, that is one good looking dude right there. And he knows his stuff. Look, a lot of people have the misconception of why Kyle was in Kenosha, what he was doing there, if he was shooting black people, not shooting black people. We just covered it. He wasn't, but a lot of people think he was. So when David says something like, oh, and I like Kyle Rittenhouse too, for the uninitiated, that's just cherry on the top, right? But David is very much in tone with politics and what's going on. He knows that Kyle's not there for any of that stuff. He knows what he's doing. He's just pushing this dude's buttons because this dude's pushed his buttons along with the other several groups of people that got up and left, you know, and he's just roasting them back. Look, at the end of the day, there are people that look at George Floyd like a saint, despite all the many flaws and criminal offenses. He's a saint. You can't pick on him. You can't say anything negative. These same people want to take down statues of our founding fathers who did so much great in the world, who created this great nation that we live in, but they were a product of their time. They had slaves, or they did something else that was negative that they didn't like. So because of the few flaws, they want to completely remove them from history, take down their statues or whatever, right? They don't have a problem with the billions in damages, the several lives lost, dozens of lives lost during the Summer of Love protests and riots in the name of, you know, singular black men being killed by police, right? They had no problem in that, but they'll turn around and say January 6th was like the worst thing ever, even though there was significantly less damage. There was only one life lost. Again, that was due to Capitol Police, but they're going to go around saying that's the worst thing that's ever happened. These are the same people, right? These people also likely think Rittenhouse shot and killed black people, even though he didn't, and they have no problem when black people align themselves and vote with the Democrat Party, staying in their lane over there, right? That's what they like, that's what they prefer, that's what they want. Anytime someone gets out of line and votes with the Republicans, is a conservative, aligns himself, and I'm not saying that David does. I don't know if David does or not. I know he's a lot more politically aware and awake than a lot of other people that he interacts with, but anytime I see people that start coming out for the Republicans or Trump or whomever it may be, you know, they'll go after him. They'll call him a coon or an Uncle Tom or some other name, right? Because they don't understand their own history. They don't understand the history of the political parties. If they did, they'd see not as much has changed over these, you know, decades, centuries, whatever, that they would like to think has. It just hasn't. Once you start breaking things down, there's not a lot that's changed. It just looks a little bit different. Look, David Lucas is a hell of a comedian, okay? He's a hell of a roaster, and he didn't do anything wrong. It's not just my opinion. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. He may have told a joke or a mention or whatever you want to call it that you didn't like or other people didn't like, and that's fine. You don't have to laugh at everything. I saw Bill Burr in concert, and he told, in fact, I think it was Kyle Rittenhouse, he was factually incorrect with what he said. The audience didn't boo. They also didn't laugh or cheer for him, but it got a little quiet. And he figured it out, picked it up, and moved on. And that's what comedians are going to do. They're going to push and push and push and push until they finally break the audience, or they're going to realize, I'm not getting anywhere here. I'm going to move on and get them to laugh at something else. So Bill did that. I think David is, awesome enough that he can figure all that out too. But at the same time, the audience was enjoying it because he was going after someone who was heckling him. And look, this ought to teach you one thing. Shut the hell up when you go to a comedy show. If you pay the money, sit down, watch the comedy show, let the comedian do their work. Let them tell the jokes. If it's not funny, don't laugh. Okay, if you're offended, maybe leave quietly, or, don't laugh at that joke, but there's probably another joke that you will laugh at in a minute. Just stay calm. Everything's going to be okay. But you don't have to make a big fuss about it and get up and walk away. Not everybody understands that, and this is what happens. So, David, if you see this, love you, dude. Think you're a hell of a comedian. Can't wait for you to come back to the hometown, do a show, or hook up and let's do some filming or whatever. But you didn't do anything wrong. I hope the cancel mob, in a way, does come after you, because I think that's just going to skyrocket your stock ultimately. But I hope they don't get you and burn you out or anything like that. And if you have not, you can click on that link below to go watch that video, or just go support his YouTube channel. Watch his videos. He's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Go check him out. I highly recommend him. All right. Next thing we're going to talk about is the continued mental and physical, I guess, just the overall decline of Joe Biden. We can see it across the board. We're just going to run through a couple articles here. Clinton advisor, this is from All Sides. Clinton advisor warns Biden needs to do more than focus on Trump in 2024. Now, this is true. So here's where the waters get a little murky when they say, Biden didn't get that many votes in 2020. It was rigged or this and that, and it was cheated and stolen. And I'm not going to say all that. Here's what I will say. I don't think as many people that voted for Biden were voting for Biden. I think possibly the majority. At least a good amount, if not the majority, were not necessarily voting for Biden. They were voting against Trump. And seeing Biden can't run off that now. We've gotten almost 4 years here with Biden not cutting it. In the last week's video, we watched this guy at a barbershop. He said, we've been broke with Biden. So they went from riding with Biden to being broke with Biden. And I think that's absolutely true, because when Trump was in office, things were a lot better for a lot more people until you had that once in a lifetime pandemic come and just, take the world by storm. To be fair, I wasn't the biggest fan of how we handled things, but how often does that kind of thing happen? And maybe we handled it better than we could have if somebody else was in office. There's really no way of knowing that or judging that. So I'm not going to place, major judgment or anything like that. I just will say that not only myself, but a lot of other people were a lot happier when Trump was in office, and especially the young folks coming up. If all they know is a Trump presidency and a Biden presidency, they probably feel a lot better about what life was like under Trump and look forward to him coming back. But we'll just run through a few more of these. In the Hill, if I can get back up to it, it says light bulb on a dimmer. New York Times editorials question Biden's ability to serve. CNN Politics says, the 2024 campaign gets grimmer with Trump's extremism on full display alongside concerns over Biden's age. Of course, I got to go after both on that one, right? Again, The Hill. Democrats fret over special counsel's Biden report ahead of November. I hate when sites do that and it loads it and pops it up, pops it down. Ugh. All right, last one here is from The State. It says, why are more voters worried about Biden's age than Trump's? It's a lot more evident. That's why. Okay. We can see it in Biden. We don't see it in Trump either at all or nearly as much. Can we see a little bit of time affecting Trump? If there's any Republicans that say no, I think they would be dishonest to themselves. Obviously, Trump is an old man. He is. He's an old man. Biden's an older man. Trump tends to wear his age a little bit better than Biden. And Biden just looks like a frail, walking, dead human being, or skeleton, future skeleton here. Trump seems to be a lot more in it and have a lot more going on. I mean, he's more spry. He's playing golf, which I've never played. It's definitely not football or basketball. So it's not a game that requires great physical, stamina or anything, I wouldn't imagine. But at the same time, he's doing a lot more than Biden is. And Biden just does the chocolate chip cookies and ice cream for the most part, if he can find out where he is and where he's going. So another thing that's got people upset again is Jon Stewart being back on the Daily Show, and he opened it up going after both Trump and Biden. To be fair, he went after both of them, but the left's not used to anybody pushing back against Biden or anything. Here's what Jon Stewart had to say about Biden's most recent gaffe, kind of showing, a little bit of what's going on.
President Biden, who I've been around numerous times just in this last year, is sharp, he's focused, he's bright.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
He's smart, he's on his game.
I was in almost every meeting with the president, and the president was in front of and on top of it all, coordinating and directing leaders who are in charge of America's national security, not to mention our allies around the globe.
Did anyone film that? Because if you're telling us behind the scenes he is sharp and full of energy and on top of it and really in control and leading, you should film that. That would be good to show to people instead of a TikTok where he goes,
Again, they're just not used to the criticism, but there's plenty to criticize. Not everybody gets it. Okay. Some people refuse to see it. Speaking of which, I kind of like Bill Maher. I'm not going to lie. When you look at his whole body of work, going back to the 80s, I guess, maybe even beyond, I don't know. But, I remember stuff from at least the late 80s, early 90s. I remember Bill Maher. And I rather like his entire body of work. Here lately, he's been like a broken clock. He's right about, twice a day. So there's times where I see him, ride with the left. And then there's sometimes I see him realize he is riding with the left and he kind of recenters himself. But sometimes he doesn't always catch himself. So here's a video of him with Jillian Michaels, who is, of course, fitness expert, certified nutritionist, and just a beautiful lesbian. But here they are talking about Biden's mental state, and he just doesn't get it.
That's why I say Biden, I wish he would get out of the way for somebody younger, but as far as can he actually do the job? Yes, he can. He's not senile. And most of the decisions are made
he's not senile?
He's not senile.
Bill! Did you see the thing where the Civil War and you needed more airports? And he's like, whoa! You think he's not senile?
He's not senile.
But Bill.
That's different.
What is that then? It wasn't happening like that when he was Obama's VP.
It doesn't, no, of course, he's a lot older and he shows it. It doesn't affect what matters. He doesn't, when they're talking in the Oval Office, first of all, he doesn't talk like that because he's just not, when you're old, you're not confident talking publicly.
Gone to me.
He's not gone. The brain is not gone. The decisions. Okay.
Do you think he's making them? I don't think he's making them.
Oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Of course he's making them.
How?
How?
He literally just called Trump the sitting president the other day.
And Trump just he did a whole rant.
Did I just tell you Trump was mentally sound?
No, but he did the same thing. People get up in the upper years, and then, especially when you're talking in public a lot, it's going to happen. It doesn't affect.
Bill.
Okay. Don't give me Bill in this area. I'm the one who doesn't know shit. Maybe you don't. I'm not saying you don't know shit.
No, I'm not claiming to know anything about politics, but watch the friggin' videos of the guy.
I've seen the videos.
He can't get off the stage.
That's not true either. I've seen the videos. We've seen the same thing.
The bicycle store. He doesn't know where he's at. You think the guy knows? Okay. I mean, because
okay. Point area explored. We have a difference of opinion.
Fair. You can school me on it. Tell me
nobody knows. I'm just telling you when he's sitting alone, not alone, when he's sitting with advisors in the Oval Office, where the job is actually done, not in this arena, which has you so interested in, this shiny object.
Object?
It's the shiny object that is distracting you because you're not in the Oval Office.
He looks demented. And I don't mean demented crazy,
exactly,
I mean like dementia.
Looks.
In your opinion.
Okay.
I mean, to me, those are signs of dementia.
Yeah, they both have some. Probably everybody does at that age.
All right, so there's a lot in that video that I'm going to break down as best I can without stringing it along all day long. All right, first and foremost, Jillian Michaels still got it. She can still get it. I know she's a lesbian, but she's still fire, in my humble yet accurate opinion. That out of the way. Bill Maher again, I like overall long term, but this is one of those times where it's like, come on, Bill. You know, he's in complete denial of Biden's mental state, of what he actually can see. And all he can point to is what happens, you know, behind the scenes where it matters. But he doesn't know what's going on back there. He's listening to these other folks that are spewing it out. And Jon Stewart called them out on it. Says, where's any evidence that that stuff is actually happening? We haven't seen that. We have seen everything else. Bill Maher's buying into it. I don't know why. I think he's smarter than that. You know, he sees the same thing we are, but he keeps saying, I've seen the tapes. I've seen this. It's not like you're saying. It's exactly like she's saying. It's exactly like we're all saying. We've all seen it. We all know what's going on. So he makes this spiel about a shiny object, right, of what we can see, or the appearance, right, versus what happens behind closed doors, again, where it all matters. But he has the gall to talk about Trump and how he acts, right? Let's talk about that for a second. Behind closed doors, where it matters, right, Trump got a lot done. Secured our border, garnered the best economy in years, lowest unemployment rate ever, lower taxes for everyone, not just the millionaires and the billionaires, right? Or whatever, the top 1%. He lowered taxes for everyone. That's another one of those, you know, word games that they try to play to make you feel like he's only looking out for certain people. No. He lowered taxes for everyone. All right. And the cherry on top on that one, no new wars. Not one new war under Trump at all. We had the pandemic. We were going to have that anyway under somebody. Couldn't avoid it, right? No new wars under Trump. That's pretty admirable. Okay. I think my camera might be glitching out on me. It might be time to get a new one. So if you see it, I don't know what's going on. I have to get that checked out. But look, because of the brutishness or whatever of Trump, I guess, Maher feels justified in judging him over that, but not Biden. Like he can go after Trump, but he can't go after Biden because of what's seen versus not seen or whatever. Furthermore, he likes Gavin Newsom. He's a big Gavin Newsom supporter, only because he looks and acts presidential, but hasn't actually accomplished anything. And in fact, made his state worse, but because he has the look and he can act presidential, you know, that shiny object kind of thing he was talking about. That's exactly why he likes Gavin Newsom. So he's very contradictory in his statements there between, you know, what matters behind the closed doors and what we can't see versus what we do see. And he focuses on a lot of what you can see when it comes to Gavin Newsom. You know, good looking guy, don't get me wrong, good looking guy, well put together, well spoken. You know, Trump looks like a brute, you know, and is mean and forceful and in charge. But he can't see Biden, who's fallen off, you know, the stage, fallen off his bike, can't get off the stage. He said he can't get off the stage. That was a lie and all these other conspiracies. No, it's out there. We've seen the tapes. The internet is forever. They're going to be out there. You can go and Google or YouTube or Rumble or whatever when this video is over and look up Biden falling, and you're going to find a plethora of videos to look at. He has forgone his own observations and the observations we've all seen and sided with the talking points of the Democratic Party. All right, so back to Biden, and we're going to wrap up this segment real quick. A couple things. AP News, President Joe Biden to travel to East Palestine next week, a year after derailment. If you remember, that's where that train derailed right? And had that chemical spill that took forever for Pete Buttigieg to get out there. Biden never, ever went. But he's found time now that it's an election year to get out there and, you know, shake hands and kiss babies or whatever he's going to do out there. Another thing to think about is Kamala Harris. In New York Post says Kamala Harris insists she's ready to serve, touts her capacity to lead. Here's a reality check for Kamala Harris in case she has to take on the role of the presidency or thinks that she's likable enough to become the president. This is technically from CBS News. I see it cites somebody else. Keller at large, is Harris truly unpopular, or is that the price of being a female politician? You know, you always got to throw that kind of option out there because everybody's racist and sexist and stuff. First two paragraphs right here, I want to say. Boston, she's next in line to the presidency, but a new poll shows Vice President Kamala Harris is anything but popular. In fact, she has one of the worst approval ratings for a VP since polls started measuring that. Okay? She's not popular. Nobody likes her, but she thinks she's ready to do the job. She may be ready to run out there. But even in that video where I was showing Jon Stewart talking about how Biden is behind the scenes, she could barely put a sentence together. She was stumbling over herself. You know, when it's like the thing about the moment in time is the times of the moments of times. You know, one of those word salads she always does. She's a hot mess. Nobody likes her. Even the black community that she has tried so hard to make sure she gets votes from for Biden, for herself. They don't want her. They don't want to have anything to do with her. And nobody likes this woman. I can't stand that woman. As far as politicians go, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, I cannot stand those two women. All right. Look, we're getting toward the end here of everything. Real quick before we move on, something I want to talk to you guys about is Gruntworks Meat Company. Again, this is another one of the companies that I've spoken about several times. They have top quality meat at grocery store prices. They're great for those that are on the carnivore, keto diet, or anyone that just likes a top quality meat. They offer a variety of grass-fed, Wagyu, Angus, regular cuts, and even some organs. Right? All the meat is pasture raised, never any antibiotics, hormones, GMOs, or pesticides. It's made in America, and 10 cents from every pound ordered is donated to a veterans organization, a charity that they work with. Check them out at Gruntworks MC. That's gruntworksmc.com. Direct link will be in the description below. But when you go, make sure you use Mayhem 10. And you'll get 10% off your entire order, even the good sell stuff. So it'll give you another 10% off. Go check them out. It's fantastic. You're going to love it. All right, moving on. Our last segment, we're going to talk about Hollywood movies. I've mentioned several times that I am a filmmaker. I am not a Hollywood filmmaker. I'm not even an Atlanta filmmaker because that's still kind of Hollywood, right? Even though I'm here in Georgia. We've kind of got our own thing going on down here. One of the criticisms that Hollywood's been facing for several years now, even before the pandemic, was they're making these huge blockbuster films with these huge blockbuster budgets, but now they've been so focused on, I'll say, their agenda, their messaging, or whatever, that the films just are not that good, but they're still using a huge budget and not getting as great of a return. And that's a lot of Disney. That's your Marvels, your Pixars, what's the other thing that they just got? Marvel, Pixar, well, Disney in general, right? With like the Snow White they're working on, not looking too great there. Sony's got Madam Web that's just come out on Valentine's Day. I'll be probably doing something about that one just cause. So keep an eye out for it. I'll give my comment and feedback on that. But yeah, they're putting hundreds of millions of dollars into these films, and they're not getting a return back on it. Found an article here from Bounding Into Comics. It says Godzilla -1 director, and I'm going to butcher it, Takashi Yamazaki, dunks on Marvel Studios' big budget inefficiency. And to be fair, again, it's not just Marvel. It's not even just Disney. It's just a lot of folks. They are just dumping so much into these films, right? So it's been over 2 months since Godzilla -1 made its way into theaters, and people are still in disbelief at the amount of money it took to achieve such a cinematic feat. American audience have become so accustomed to watching massive budget superhero movies that cost nothing short of $250 million to produce and only get lukewarm reactions from audiences. Superhero movies have become nothing more than actors in costumes standing in front of blue screens, while the overwhelming majority of the film isn't completed until post-production VFX teams make the film look as presentable as they can in a short period. This business model drives the cost of the biggest movies of the year to explode to 9 figures, which is the primary reason why so many major studios are losing billions of dollars, billions with a B, billions of dollars every year on movies that the interest does not match the amount of money sunk into the project. Go away. When a Godzilla movie from Japan comes along and claims to have been able to produce an entire feature film for less than $15 million, it is understandable why American audiences are in disbelief at such a claim. How can they make a film like Godzilla Minus One that looks so good yet only costs 1/16 of what your average Marvel movie costs to produce? Godzilla Minus One director Takashi Yamazaki, again, sorry, continues to pour salt in the wounds of Western filmmakers by not only sticking to his claim that the film only cost a total of $12 million to produce, but the production was able to pull this off without having to cut corners on luxuries for the cast and crew on set of the movie. In a recent sit-down with Vulture, Yamazaki said his team underlined that working conditions were pretty comfortable during the making of Minus One, despite the small budget. He claimed, "One thing that I will say is that we had our company do a pretty nice renovation and overhaul of this office floor because once we knew that we were going to work on a Godzilla project, we knew that we were going to be spending significant hours together. We made it more comfortable and cozy. We spent some budget building out a kitchen." He continued, "We have a designated sushi chef." For those that like sushi, that's pretty. My daughter loves sushi. "We have a designated sushi chef in the kitchen. We really try to avoid long hours, but if you do, it's a very welcoming environment in which to spend a few extra hours. Hopefully in due time, VFX budget increases will allow for more improvements. I am looking forward to the day I butcher that whole sentence." So the point is that these guys are spending significantly less money, cranking out big feature projects, and getting a significant return on it. You don't have to spend all that money. A lot of it is over-bloated costs. I mean, I forget if it was Nerdrotic or Critical Drinker I was watching the other day, and they were talking about this as well, that there's so many names in the credits that pretty much do nothing. So many different people that do nothing. And again, this is coming from someone who's small-time, little itty-bitty filmmaker. Again, the biggest budget film I ever made was, I think, I made it for $900. So I'm nobody, and I'm making nothing in a sense. But everybody had fun, and we didn't overwork anybody, I don't think, or at least they didn't tell me. But we could easily get a return on that if I were to put it out somewhere. It's on YouTube and Rumble and everywhere. You can go check it out for free, along with all my other stuff. I just put it out there. Eventually, maybe one day, we'll make something that we can get distributed. That would be wonderful. In fact, now's a good time to kind of reach out to folks like us, I think, because we can make a lot for a little, and would love the opportunity to do so. And I think the American audience, maybe the world audience, but definitely the American audience, is looking for that creativity to come back. The Back to the Futures, the Ghostbusters, all the chances that were taken on things that weren't sequels, prequels, or the like. The only sequel that I know about, and I talked about this last week, that I'm actually looking forward to is the sequel to 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, which is 28 years later, largely because it's got a lot of the original people working on the project again. So I am looking forward to that. But a lot of the Marvel stuff that comes out now, I haven't even seen. Endgame was pretty much the end for me. It was a huge movie, but the huge budget it had made it where it wasn't super profitable. In fact, this is an article on that from MovieWeb. And this is an older article because it was around the time this came out. Joker by Todd Phillips, was set to earn almost as much profit as Avengers Endgame. And I won't read through the whole article here. Again, anytime I mention articles, videos, whatever, the links to those will always be in the description below. Go check them out. You can always read behind me, get your thoughts on it, make sure I'm not skipping over and cherry picking stuff, and see if it's a credible source. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, maybe you like another one. That's on you. That's your thing. That's fine. But yeah, the reason Joker had a significantly smaller budget, made almost $1 billion. Actually, now they may have even crossed over with, streaming and rentals and, whatever. But, and that movie was amazing. In fact, I've got a little thing right here. My wife got me a little gift from that movie. I loved it so much. This wasn't planned, but yeah, I mean, I've got, look, if I can buy it on Blu-ray or DVD, I'm going to. I'm not going to trust Netflix or Disney or HBO or whatever to always keep it. So I'm purchasing hard copies of movies I love. And I don't do that as much anymore because there's not a ton of movies out there that I do love. But Joker, please. It was a cinematic masterpiece, from the acting, the story, and one of my favorite things as a filmmaker was the cinematography. Loved the cinematography of it. I am trying so hard to learn how to do cinematography like that, as cinematography is apparently one of my focal specialty areas in the filmmaking world. And when we all work together, that tends to be where I lean most. But my point is, back to this, sorry, had to make it about me for just a minute. But the point is that they've got these huge actors that are costing millions of dollars. Then sometimes they get a percentage of the overall product, the finished product, right? Then you got all these investors because your studio's broke because you've made so many woke movies or garbage movies just in general, and you're doing everything you can to make these films, and they're lackluster because you're putting all kinds of things first except for the story. You're not putting the audience first, that's for sure. You're trying to virtue signal, or you're pushing the message of what you're pushing, or whatever it is. You're not trying to tell a good story, and so the return on it is not what you're hoping for. I think we can take a big lesson from Godzilla -1 over in Japan. I had a conversation with a friend the other night. We were talking about, maybe the price is a lot cheaper there, like they have sweatshops or something where they're cranking out VFX. I don't think that's the case in Japan. Could be wrong, could be, completely misunderstanding that. But I do think our VFX houses are overworked here because they're creating everything from the suits to lighting to the backdrop, replacing the backdrop, doing everything, literally everything in the film. Whereas a film probably like Godzilla -1, they're just adding smoke filler over here or an explosion over there, and then maybe using miniatures and stuff where they can. All that plays a big role. And if you do it right, you don't have to spend an arm and a leg, especially all the time and energy it takes to do VFX. I am not a specialty at that. I don't like to do that. So everything I shoot is as practical can possibly be. All right. So that's going to do it for us today, guys. Hey, don't forget, remember that we will have our weekly long form show up every Friday, 10 a.m., unless otherwise announced. We'll also be cutting up these segments into smaller bite-sized pieces, and we'll be releasing those throughout the week. We call those morning nuggets. And I may post something random from time to time throughout the week if there's breaking news or something I just need to get off my chest. And with all that said, if you enjoyed the video and you stayed with me this far, please make sure to like it. If you really like this content, you want to see more, subscribe or follow. And if you feel like anybody else needs to see it, make sure you hit that share button, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks.
I saw a billboard. It said estimated lotto jackpot 55 million. See, I didn't know that shit was estimated. That would suck if you want to go, oh, we were off by 2 zeros. We estimate that you are angry.